Oh, chaps. Excuse me. Back in February, it looks like I overlooked around the first 80th anniversary or something like that. In a way, is now largely forgotten by people outside of certain historians anyway. But then my excuse is I wasn't making these videos back then, and I was in the thick of it, still working on tour buses and no time to do anything outside of work, never mind breathe, it seems sometimes. However, it's kind of lost in the phony war as such. In early February 1940, the Altmark, or the Altmark incident. Effectively, the first time I became aware of the Altmark was repeated viewings of the film Battle of the River Plate, which is a fairly accurate, as accurate it can get anyway, representation of what happened with the Admiral Grash Bay, the hunt for it. The South Atlantic. She had slipped into the South Atlantic before war was declared and then made herself rather happy under Langsdorff, raiding all manner of shipping. And as she did so, she took a bunch of prisoners, like you see in the film, played by the likes of Bernard Lee and Peter Dinley, brilliant George Marcel, and Anthony Newley. That's a couple of funny lines, like when they're being shelled, when I'm done this side, turn me over. And they were transferred, some of them from the Altmark, and presumably some of them were transferred too. Now, the film shows there were still POWs on the Grass Bay when she made it to Montevideo. Otherwise, the Altmark proceeded to head home, that's to say Germany. Now, bear in mind, in December 1939, January 1940, Norway is still technically neutral. And I say technically, and France obviously, even though it's at war with Germany, is relatively untouched, of course. And so for a German vessel to get home on the surface anyway, even if you're a submarine, you can go through unnoticed, I'd imagine. For a surface ship, she's going to have to transverse neutral waters. Now, there effectively is no sort of statement as such as that ships could carry POWs in neutral waters, because the British did it with HMS Dispatch. So the Altmark takes a couple of months and it gets to the Norwegian waters in early February, and the Norwegians board her, search her, and don't really find anything of note, but the British know that there are indeed a bunch of prisoners of war on them. They're not really sure of the exact number, and so Winston Churchill, as First Lord of the Admiralty, more or less says, well, let's go get them, or at least somebody does. And I think the British put some pressure on the Norwegians, possibly, to try and do something about it. And effectively, something had to give, of course. Winston Churchill and the British would probably not have been terribly happy if a bunch of POWs went through what could have been an Allies' territory, or waters anyway, and not be attempted to be liberated. So, as I like to get my quotes and whatnot, I decided to reach forward for Winston Churchill's first book in his World War II series I got years ago for university, The Gathering Storm. And essentially, it was to get to also, not really doing well speaking properly today, to sort of let the Norwegians know that the British are not going to take certain things lying down, be it them letting this happen or possibly side with the Germans. I mean, Norway could have gone either way. It probably would have lent to the rest. So Churchill messaged on the 16th of February to the First Sea Lord, who is, of course, the military head of the Royal Navy, whereas Churchill was the civilian. On the position as reported to me this morning, we'd seen that the cruisers and destroyers should sweep northward during the day up the coast of Norway, not hesitating to arrest Altmark in territorial waters should she be found. This ship is violating neutrality in carrying British prisoners of war to Germany. Surely another cruiser or two should be sent to rummage the Skagerrak tonight. The Altmark must be regarded as an infallible trophy. A small destroyer flotilla is put together by the Bods at the Admiralty, commanded by Captain Philip Fian. Fien, or Fine, we'll say Fien, ultimately became one of the big names as far as naval men were in the Second World War. In the year after the Altmark incident, he had been involved in the Norwegian campaign and in hunting down the Bismarck in the last couple of days anyway. His flotilla was there also, including his ship HMS Cossack, which was leading this destroyer flotilla to liberate the Altmark prisoners. Fien went on to serve in the Med for the most part, and then finished the war in the Far East, commanding naval air forces, and was knighted. So a chap really of the old mould as far as the Royal Navy is concerned, and then you only have to read a page or something, even if it's William Shire's The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, or Roy Jenkins's Churchill book, which I've been flicking through lately, that it feels like a bit of British Boy's Own, how, like some kind of dare and do. And there is something both sort of romantic and adventurous sort of way, but also fairly determined. I mean, like I said, this was still the phony war. Norway was neutral, and the invasion's 2 months away, but as we'll see, it was effectively spurred on. And so Fien goes in the close and is challenging, and he's not getting very far from the looks of it. And then Churchill signalled in the evening, unless Norwegian torpedo boat undertakes to convoy Altmark to Bergen with a joint Anglo-Norwegian guard on board and a joint escort, you should board Altmark, liberate the prisoners and take possession of the ship pending further instructions. If Norwegian torpedo boat interferes, you should warn her to stand off. If she fires upon you, you should not reply unless attack is serious, in which case you should defend yourself using no more force than is necessary, and cease and fire when she desists. Well, would that have meant sinking Norwegian vessels? Quite possibly. Was Churchill trying to do it to rile the Norwegians? Yes and no, you would think. As I say, Norway would have been a great credit to the British war effort, or the Allied war effort, and help influence things with Finland and iron ore and all the rest of it, benefiting the British more than the Germans, of course, and also keeping the coastline available to take on German shipping, because like I say, at the moment, unless they took Norway and France, they had got a bloody hard journey ahead of them, leaving Germany and coming back home. I mean, submarines would probably be okay within reason, but a surface ship would be buggered. So Fien goes in, they board in the evening, or after dark you might say, and the Royal Navy board carrying bayonets. There is a legend that's persisted since 1940 that effectively it was the last naval action involving cutlasses, because somebody on the Cossack claimed they saw somebody boarding carrying a cutlass. It doesn't look like, unfortunately, it's true, and it all stems from the Germans branding their sailors as sea pirates. Why they felt the need to prefix pirate of sea, I don't know, because pirate I would have thought was always synonymous for the most part with the ocean blue. Now Fien didn't take part in it, obviously. I wonder if he would have wanted to. And they ran down, and there was a fight on the top deck, and then they were running down. They're looking at, for now, nearly 300 prisoners of war. And so what do? You shout, "Is there any Englishmen here?" And somebody shouts back, "We're all British, all British." And he goes, and the response from the naval bods went down in history, well, British history, as the Navy is all right. The Navy's here. And there was an almighty cheer. 299 prisoners of war are liberated, taken off to the British ships, and a handful of German sailors had been killed, and the Germans left a marker for the duration of the occupation to the men of the Altmark who died, and it's now in the Royal Navy Museum in Portsmouth. And if I remember after editing this mess, it'll be at the end of this video, God willing. However, in the then present of February 1940, it sent repercussions in all directions. In like some kind of foretelling of the Brexit business, Norway and Germany were pissed. I'm joking. They were rather irked, to put it mildly, with the British. The Norwegians had said their neutrality was violated. Germany effectively said the same thing and then said, you can't do this to our ships. It sent Hitler into a frothing rage and instructed that the invasion of Norway should be accelerated at a rate. What's the planning for it? Ships should be equipped, men should be ready. I want to go. So Churchill must have come out of it feeling quite chuffed. He's looking, it's a stunning operation, really, but a cocky operation, because they were in neutral waters. But that was all 80 years ago, and it was overshadowed eventually by the invasion of Norway, which in turn was overshadowed by the invasion of France, Holland, Belgium, and the Low Countries, or the Low Country, because I missed out Luxembourg. And nowadays no one would know the Altmark incident unless they have watched Battle of the River Plate. But there you have it. Much like the taking of the Altmark, not the smoothest of transactions, but there you have it.